Hello, my name is Reverend Phillip Shanker of the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification. And it's my privilege to introduce you to this lecture series, an introductory series on the divine principle, a new and profound expression of the ancient truths taught in the Bible and expressed in the world's great faiths. Let us begin. By way of introduction, let us first consider the purpose and value of human life. We can recognize that everyone on earth is struggling to attain happiness and at the same time to avoid suffering or misfortune. Well, let us ask, what is it that makes a human being happy? Immediately our answer would be that people feel joy when their desires are fulfilled. But we had better recognize that desire has many expressions. We have desires within us that reflect our original nature to be and to do good. Now, when we express these desires, we find satisfaction, a sense of confidence and integrity, and we can look people straight in the eye and have confidence in ourselves. However, there are other desires within us that when we express those out of selfishness or a moment of need or greed, we may find a moment's satisfaction or relief from pressure, but ultimately the pang of conscience will overtake us. Within the self-same individual are two opposing inclinations: the original mind, which desires to be and to do good, and an evil or selfish mind, which seems to pursue a more wicked and corrupt purpose. Now, these two natures are engaged in a fierce battle, striving to accomplish these two contradictory and conflicting purposes. Which one of us has not experienced the struggle within when we find ourselves knowing we should do something, but not having the will or the strength to do what we know is right? Or conversely, knowing that there's an action we should not take, but when no one is looking, we can't overcome the desire, the temptation to do it. Now, any being possessing such a contradiction within itself will struggle with its own self-identity and is ultimately doomed to perish. Christianity sees this state of destruction as the result of the human fall. Let's consider how the impact of that decline or that descent of humanity has impacted our understanding of the world. Considered from the viewpoint of the intellect, the human fall represents humanity's descent into ignorance. We can say that people are composed of two aspects, internal and external, or mind and body. Likewise, the intellect consists of two aspects, an internal and an external aspect. In the same way, there are two types of ignorance, internal and external. Now, internal ignorance refers to our ignorance about the fundamental questions of life. Who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going? Is there life after death? What is good? What is evil? How should I relate with the larger world? And what is my place or purpose in the universe? From time immemorial, human beings have sought the answer to these questions. External ignorance refers to our ignorance of our environment, the nature of matter, how our physical body, human body, works. These comprise together these two aspects of ignorance. Now, through religion, humanity has followed the path of searching for internal truth. Anthropologically, from the time human life arose on the face of the earth, we find that human beings were compelled to be awed by the power of nature, to recognize in those powers something greater, to seek to worship or relate or appease those powers. Naturally arose the desire to take care of the souls of their departed loved ones. And so funerals, unlike the animals before them, we began these kinds of rituals and practices. So through religion, humanity has followed the path of searching for internal truth. At the same time, through science, humanity has pursued the external truths. In this way, we've sought to understand how our physical body works, the nature of matter, and how the universe operates, the laws and principles, and to improve the conditions of life for all people. Now, these two endeavors, pursuing different realms of the human experience, have seemed at times in the course of their development to take positions that were contradictory or even irreconcilable, such as the biblical understanding of 6 days of creation versus science's awareness that life evolved over a long period of time. But these are not necessarily contradictory. And in fact, for humankind to completely overcome the two aspects of ignorance and fully realize the goodness which our original mind desires, at some point in history, there must emerge a new truth which can reconcile religion and science and resolve their problems in an integrated understanding. This is one of the missions of the new truth, to bring about this harmonized view of life and in that way empower us to realize a world of goodness. What else can we say about the mission of the new truth? Well, first of all, this truth should be able to lift humanity through a broad and unified vision into a new age, a new world. At the same time, the truth should be able to embrace all historical religions, ideologies, and philosophies, be able to understand these varying perspectives, provide the big picture, and show the relevance of each part, and in this way, bring harmony and unity among them. Also, this new truth should be able to empower human beings to overcome the contradiction within our nature and guide fallen people to return to our original state and regain our original nature and value. Now, this is precisely what the divine principle has the power to achieve. This teaching is not the result of philosophical inquiry or academic library research. It is revealed understanding. It came as a revelation. It is presented in a format relevant to people of today and approaches the problems of life in much the same way that any modern person would approach a problem. For example, when we are sick, we go to a doctor. Why we go to a medical professional to solve the problem is because he or she has been trained in this area. A doctor first must study anatomy, how the body works, what is the blueprint, and what's the ideal structure and function of a healthy body. Secondly, a doctor then can study pathology, how disease arises, where does the body tend to break down, what is the problem that causes bad health or problems. And then thirdly, a doctor can study therapy, how to cure these problems and restore the original state of health that the body was designed to be in. In exactly the same way, the divine principle is expressed in 3 major parts. The first, which we'll hear today, is the principle of creation, a blueprint for the purpose, the structure, and the function of life in the universe, how the universe was designed to function, its principles and nature, the nature of its first cause, the creator, whom we call God. And in the midst of that, a deeper understanding of the purpose and value of our own human life. The second part of the principle is the human fall, to understand exactly how the contradiction arose that has undermined our ability to realize these dreams and why the world of our reality is so different than the world of our dreams. Thirdly, the principle of restoration, showing how, through history and the process of reaching out through religious understanding and truth, God has worked to restore humankind back to our original position, original value, and original nature. Now, as I said, this truth is revealed understanding. Its purpose is ultimately to resolve the fundamental problems of human life and the universe, and it is the teaching of Reverend Sun Myung Moon. Now, one final point before we begin. Whenever new truth has been revealed throughout human history, we find that human beings tend to resist or even reject this new understanding because we want to somehow cling to our traditional ways and the comfortable truths that we've known. Consider this example. In the earliest understandings of human beings, we related to the powers of nature by trying to appease them through offerings and through sacrifices. This age in the Bible is conveyed as the time of Abraham, and these were the traditions before and during Abraham's time. Now, it was Abraham's descendants who received a new truth through Moses and a new understanding through 10 commandments and 613 laws, a God of justice, righteousness, and a moral standard for human beings to live in relationship with God. But the people didn't easily receive Moses' teaching. They resisted. And when Moses went up on the mountain to receive the 10 commandments, they immediately rebuilt the golden calf and began idol worship and sacrifice. Now, ultimately, the truths of Moses were established as the tradition of the Old Testament. And it was these people of Israel that were prepared for the coming of the Messiah. Now, once again, when Jesus came as the Messiah, to the very people who had been waiting for him for 2,000 years, they couldn't see him. They rejected him. They resisted. Why? Because he did not repeat what they had already learned in the Old Testament. Jesus brought a new gospel, an understanding of a God of love, a God of grace. And Jesus acted in such a way that seemed to undermine their traditions. And they accused him for defiling the Sabbath, for breaking their laws, and for changing their traditions. Thus, Jesus felt compelled to say things like, I came not to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. He said, you worry about cleansing the cup and the plate. Why don't you worry about cleansing your inner self? Now, when Jesus taught, even then, he was unable to share everything that he knew and had prepared. He said in John 16:12 and 25, I have yet many things to share with you, but you cannot bear them now. He said, I've spoken of earthly things and you can't understand. How can I tell you of heavenly things? Jesus promised in the 16th chapter of John that the Spirit of truth would come and eventually guide us into all truth. Now, St. Paul echoed this perspective in his first letter to Corinthians, 13th chapter, 9th through 12th verses, when Paul noted the limitation of our faith and our understanding. He said, our knowledge is imperfect, our prophecy is imperfect. Now we see dimly through a glass, but the time will come when we see face to face. Now we understand in part, but the time must come when we understand fully, even as we have been fully understood. Paul used a metaphor of growing up. He said, when I was a child, I thought like a child, I spoke like a child, I understood like a child. But when I grew up and became a man, I put away childish things. My brothers and sisters, through the divine principle, we can now come to a new understanding of our traditional faith, and in many areas of that faith, we can put away childish things.